Mr. Mayor, we're now live.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Due to the COVID-19 emergency declaration, this meeting of Ajax Council is being held electronically and live streamed on the town's website. All members of council in attendance are participating by audio and video teleconference, and senior town staff are available throughout the meeting if council members have any questions on the agenda. For members of the public watching from home, please bear with us if we encounter any technical difficulties throughout the meeting. I'll now call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island and the Chippewas of the Anishinaabe, known today as the Williams Treaties First Nations. This place is and will continue to be home to Indigenous peoples. Let us move forward together with kindness and respect. Moving down, does any member of council have any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
No.
Hearing none. Mr. Clerk, I understand that there has been no members of the public reach out wanting to make with questions for question period?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, very good. Moving on to the minutes, we have moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Khan, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on July 27th, 2020 be adopted. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Hold on, I got to switch my screen so I can see you. Hearing none, those in favor? Any opposed? Nope, that's carried. And moving on to the closed session minutes, moved by Councillor Tyler Morin, second by Regional Councillor Crawford, that the minutes of the closed session meeting of council held on July 27th be adopted. Question or comments on the closed session minutes? Being none, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. As I said, there was no request from the public for questions through question period. Moving on to delegations, we have a special guest with us tonight. We have Mariska Thomas, Chair of the Anti-Black Racism Task Force, to give us an update. Are you ready, Mariska?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Mayor Collier, councillors, members of the senior management team, members of the audience, good evening. It is an honor to represent the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force, also known as the AABR Task Force. I would like to acknowledge members of the nominating committee for their dedication and outstanding work. They are Trevor Noble, Eleanor McIntosh, Pauline Vassell, and Dane Lawrence. We dedicated several meetings and hours to complete this important initiative. There was a tremendous response of excellent applicants to join the task force committee, and the recruitment process involved shortlisting the applicants and Zoom interviews for the selected candidates. All levels of the process included a grading chart for final decision making. The nominating committee worked as a team to recruit the members of the task force, and at the same time created the terms of reference and a draft framework for the work plan to initiate immediate discussion and contribution by the task force. Here are some of the elements of the terms of reference. That the AABR task force will make recommendations for action to eliminate barriers experienced by the Black community and other racialized groups. That the task force will establish a work plan to implement initiatives and will liaise with the Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator for presentations and approval from the Mayor and Council for implementation. Some of the guiding principles include high standards of respectful, inclusive communication and transparency with members and the community. Details of membership roles and responsibilities were also established and included meeting attendance and professionalism. I would now like to announce the task force members. Mariska Thomas, Chair, Dane Lawrence, Vice Chair, Pauline Vassal, Secretary Treasurer, Brenton Aline, Camille Perry, Danielle James, Jaden Lawton, Janelle Benjamin, Kira Van Dusen, Keisha Facey, Kevin Venner, Monica Edwards, Elena McIntosh, Nikidia Thompson, Sonia Ellis Wynn, and Talisa Bolan. The task force members contributed to the creation of the work plan, which is divided into short-term goals slated for year 1, 2021 to 2020 to 2021, year 2, 2021 to 2022, and onwards. Action items were also developed for each goal. The goals will be prioritized at the task force meeting October 15, and the action items will be divided among teams for brainstorming and development of proposals for approval by council. Here are some of the short-term goals. Point 2 on the chart, engage Ajax business leaders and encourage them to review their policies and practices to reduce barriers in hiring, internal promotion practices, leadership development, and workplace skill training. Point 3 on the chart, identify current gaps in workforce census data and make recommendations to improve hiring practices for qualified Black candidates and from other racialized groups. Point 5 on the chart, coordinate and partner with various diverse organizations within Ajax. For example, the Ajax Public Library, to develop information and awareness sessions on anti-Black, systemic, and institutional racism, using multiple modalities, for example, panel discussion and/or speaker series. Here are some of the long-term goals. Point 1, year 2 on the chart, explore the feasibility for resource or community center in Ajax that meets the various needs and interests of the community. For example, culture, arts, health, etc., with a focus for the Black community and racialized groups. Point 2, year 2 on the chart, explore the visibility of a business center in Ajax with the intention of providing solutions such as resources, information, office space, and mentoring for new and existing business owners by Black people and racialized groups. Full details are provided on the strategic work plan, which will be posted on the Ajax IMO Hub page. On behalf of the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to make a difference in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariska. Before I go to questions, I just want to take a moment to introduce a new member of staff, and that is Natasha Sharma. Natasha, can you come on the screen for a sec? Natasha is our new diversity coordinator, and I think everybody is aware that during COVID, we had a hiring freeze, but this is one position that, because of its importance, we decided to fill. So we've gone out, and Natasha has filled that position. I've met with her a couple of times so far, and we both attended the first Anti-Black Racism Task Force meeting last Thursday, and it was great. And I think Natasha's doing a great job. So I just wanted to introduce you, Natasha, so everybody can put a face to the name now. And she will be the liaison with the Anti-Black Racism Task Force.
Thank you.
So, welcome. I saw Regional Councillor Crawford, Lee. Did anybody else have questions? Go ahead, Councillor Crawford and Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Mariska, for your update. I really appreciate it. We're really excited actually to hear about where you've come from, what you've been doing. And I know it's been a very, very busy few months for you, just trying to get everything organized and getting your team together. So thank you for the time that you've put into this along with your team. I was very, very pleased to see that you actually had your first endorsement that was sent endorsing the body worn camera for the police. So congratulations on that. That's a big thing, and I understand it was a unanimous vote. So congratulations on that. Very pleased to see that. I'm just curious, and I hope I'm not overstepping my boundaries at all, but I was wondering about your social media presence, and if you intend to have your own Facebook page or your Instagram page, more along, I love the idea that it's the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force, but it still separates you from being, let's say, on the town website, giving you that autonomy that we believe that this whole task force was looking for at that time. I don't know, I don't want to fire all my questions out at once. Is it okay if she answers, Your Worship?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crawford. I think it would be a topic to discuss at the task force meeting. I know the town of Ajax, they have been quite helpful in helping us on the Ajax IMO hub page, or if we need any social media through the communications department, they'll be quite willing to help us. So I'm not sure how this will complement the Ajax town's social media, because they do have the Twitter and Instagram, etc. So my understanding would be working with them, but it's something we would have to discuss at the meeting.
Okay, sure. And the other thing I just wanted to, I thought would be kind of interesting. I sat with one of our residents for about 2 hours one day, looking at his business's website with diversity and inclusion. And the one thing that really struck me was listening to people's stories. And I would love to know what your committee members' stories are and where they came from and how they actually found themselves even wanting to be a part of this committee. And I think that would be really valuable if they're open to that, to even being adding onto your IMO page. I just think that the more that we know about who is on the task force, the better it is for everybody. We all want to get better educated. We all want to get to be better citizens here in Ajax. And so I think that would be really a good incentive, I think. And the other thing is, do you ever intend to be posting your minutes, whether written or recorded through Zoom? I'm just wondering if that will be something that will be happening.
Yes, we have the minutes. They're all ready to be posted on the Ajax IMO hub page, if that's the page you like us to post it. So I'll be working with Natasha, or liaison, to get that going.
Okay, great. Thank you so much again. Thanks for all your hard work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Khan. Sorry, Councillor Lee. Yeah,
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm back. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mariska, for the update. Just a few questions from me through the Chair. How many applicants did we get to this task force?
About 71. There were a few late ones, but about 71.
71, and I don't think I'm going far out by saying that that's really a lot. That's probably a higher number than most of our applications for different committees or task force that we have. So I think it's very fair to say that there's obviously a ton of interest in this specific task force because of its importance in the social and cultural shift that we're trying to make within the town and Canada, etc. I guess for total, it's a membership, I think, of 12, if I'm not mistaken, or is it 13?
We have 15 plus an
15.
advisor. Yes.
So for the remaining 56 applicants who, showed some civic duty and wanted to apply, will there be a chance down the line to re-engage them? I don't want to lose these people based on the fact that they didn't make the immediate task force, but I'm assuming there'll be another chance for them to be engaged in terms of points of view and suggestions.
Well, the Ajax IMO hub page has a suggestion box, and we have received really good suggestions from that page. I think it's excellent. So if there's another way we can engage them, by all means, we can discuss that. And if anyone has any suggestions, we can discuss that at the task force meeting to see how we can do that. But
Right.
then all the initiatives we have coming up, they will have an opportunity to
Right.
voice their opinions, whether it's through the panel discussion or the speaker series, when there may be a question answer period. I'm not sure how that will be coordinated as yet, but we will be working on that from October.
I think that's what I was getting at ultimately, is that even though the 56 who didn't make the task force, the immediate task force, or any other resident who is maybe hearing about this for the first time or is interested in now, there'll be other points of engagement for you to help give your feedback and your points of view to help make this the best, most forward-thinking task force. I guess that's what I was asking.
Yes, and we definitely are considering surveys, so there'll be a lot of opportunities.
I guess the one thing I noticed from your points of points of the short-term goals, long-term goals, was I didn't hear anything regarding looking within the town of Ajax organization or the region of Durham organization to find out areas of weakness, areas of improvement. Is that along the lines of a focus for you, or you don't see that as a focus?
No, we have that in point 2 and point 3. We have the goals, but if you look further in the action plan, we have a lot of suggestions, a lot of points for the action plan for the town of Ajax and for within Ajax for the business leaders. And there's another point that we have, well, do we have to consult with all levels of government,
Right.
provincial, federal?
I just think there's a huge opportunity for us, as in the politicians or leaders, either at the town level or the region level, and obviously the province and the feds, to look within ourselves and look within our practices and look within our biases to possibly check those as well.
Yes.
And I think this task force will provide the greatest magnifying glass on ourselves so for us to make those changes. Because I think honestly, any kind of long-lasting change starts within the chief organization, which is the town of Ajax, right? So just wanted to thank you one more time and your entire group for all the hours and hours of work you guys are never going to put in. I'm looking forward to the final report, and I think we were finally able to turn the corner and start making some lasting change that will affect generations. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yes, we had Councillor Bauer was next.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Mariska. Thank you very much for your presentation. I was glad to see your video pop up when you first or when I first joined in the meeting, so I could put a face to your name, because I've heard your name an awful lot over the last few months. I want to thank you and your team for all the hard work, and it's going to be even harder as you've put this plan together, an excellent plan to achieve these goals, hopefully in the time frame that you have set for them. Councillor Lee asked one of my questions, which was, how many applicants did you have? And I was just wondering if you could break down for us the number of applicants per ward.
We have in every ward, but we had more in Ward 1. So in Ward 1, we had, well, actually not the applicants. I have the committee.
Sorry, yes, that's the question that I meant to ask you. Thank you.
We have 9 from Ward 1, and that's not intentional. We have 4 from Ward 2 and 2 from Ward 3.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And you just said it was not intentional, that there happened to be more from one ward than the others. And I was just curious, and I'm glad that council is hands off of this committee, but I was just curious if that was a factor when you were reviewing the applications to have representation from each ward.
Yes, we wanted representation from each ward, and we indicated that in the applicant's questions, with the questions, to indicate which ward they were from. But as then we started shortlisting, then there seemed to be more, and then the final candidates more from one ward than the other.
Right. Okay. Okay. And is there a process in place for if there are any members who need to step down from the committee. I know that one of the procedures is if they don't attend a certain number, then they may be asked to step down or review their commitment. So is there a process for if someone does leave the committee that you will appoint a substitute within the number of applications that you submitted originally or received originally?
Yes, in the terms of reference, we indicated we will look at the pool of applicants and then consider, we'll discuss it at the committee meeting and appoint maybe 1 or 2 members from the pool of applicants.
Okay, thank you. My only comment would be, it would be nice that the committee always has representation, all of the boards and agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your hard work.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Mariska.
Hi.
It's your repetition, your good repetition precedes you, and I can't imagine I've been here so long and we've not met. And Lisa was lucky; she saw you. I didn't get a chance to see you. So I think Councillor Lee did ask the questions about applicants as well. As you know, many of our colleagues have been calling and trying to get on this esteemed task force, and I'm very happy to have you and to see our town being this well represented. And the members that you chose, men like Dane Lawrence has been a colleague of mine over the last 14 to 15 years, a man of high integrity. Brenton, a young man that carries himself with such poise and dignity. The young members you have on board, I'm very stoked to see what you're going to do with this. And we're very proud again to be leaders in this. And I thank my colleagues for pushing so hard for this. It makes Ajax a very proud place to be, and having you at the helm and leading this it's something that dear to our hearts, all of us together. So thank you. My questions have been answered, and Lisa did ask some very valid questions as well. And again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Dice.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Mariska, I just wanted to thank you. We've been looking forward to this. It's so very, very important in our community that we work on some of the issues here. And I'm really pleased to see how many, so many people who actually wanted to be on this task force, which is great. And I know you put a lot of work into this, and you've worked hard to get to this point, and it's really very, very appreciated. I'm hoping as you move forward in your meetings, tackling the various issues, that there's an opportunity also to educate the community, because every issue will have stories, of course, and some of us, of course, have not experienced racism. We don't understand it. And I think to get public support, we need that piece of education as well. But I know you have a plate full. You've got a lot to do. And I really do appreciate it. I have a vested interest in this. I think it's very, very important. A community is a community. We're all neighbors. Our kids go to school together. And I think it's long, long overdue. I wish you the best of luck. And I think council will agree. We're all here if you need anything.
Okay,
So
thank you.
you.
And Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very quickly, Mariska, I just wanted to say thank you to you and Dane and everyone on the task force and everyone on the committee. You and I have had many engagements over the last 5 or 6 years, and you've always been pleasant and warm, and I've always felt better after speaking with you. So I just want to wish you all the best, and I look forward to, I'm proud of the fact that you've agreed to do this. Just thank you so much. Look forward to hearing all the findings and creating some great history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got everybody now. I'll just wrap it up. Mariska, I don't have any questions, but I've reviewed the terms of reference in the work plan and attended that meeting on Thursday, and I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far. I think you guys have put a really, really strong foundation in place of which to work from, and we're expecting some great things. I will echo my colleagues in saying thank you and your committee for all of your hard work so far. And if there's anything that we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out through Natasha to us, and we're here to assist every step of the way. So thank you for your presentation tonight, and have a great evening.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to our next presentation, and I don't know that this is a presentation, but we have our CAO Shane Baker, and the report is in the agenda, and I believe we'll be asking questions. Mr. Baker?
Good evening, members of council. Yes, I just wanted to make some comment. Am I still muted here?
No,
No,
we can hear you, but we can't
Okay, good.
see you.
Okay, my screen keeps saying I'm muted, but anyway. Yeah, I just wanted to make some comments regarding the report. As promised, we have brought forward another update to you regarding our COVID-19 response. And same theme as the previous update. You know, we've been since mid-March, we've been taking a very cautious and measured approach. That's been our motto around the Municipal Emergency Control Group meeting team. And for instance, one of the things that I'm really pleased with, while some municipalities closed down their town halls almost immediately and stopped providing service through their municipal offices, we made the choice to stay open. However, as you're aware, there's a security guard there that screens people, and people can come in by appointment. So we haven't had a lot of pressure from the public to reopen the actual building because we have been able to provide the services that they need. And only just recently, other municipalities are moving in the same direction. So I think I'm very proud of the MECG committee, and you know, we've met over 50 times, as the report says. We've made over 370 decisions related to service provision and the programming of the municipality and so on, with the best interest of the municipality in mind, public safety, as well as our fiscal responsibility. So the report lays out a number of the different things that I'm sure most of member council are aware of, because we've been doing weekly updates and so on. It talks about the redeployed staff and laying off part-time staff and so on, which you can see in the financial implications, the result of those particular decisions. And recently, as you're aware, we've been moving towards a reopening plan. So Recreation, Culture, and Community Development presented a reopening plan, and we started reopening our facilities as of September 14th. And the different facilities are noted in the report. And but we took a very limited approach because we wanted to make sure there was demand. That was the most important thing. We didn't want to just open up all of our facilities, all of our arenas, and so on, until we actually saw that people would be using them. But what we have done is we have effectively moved from redeployed staff. We've brought them back. We've had to bring them back into recreation. We've now had to hire staff for operations, seasonal staff. The summer students are finished now. We were able to get through the summer, as the report talks about, with our redeployed staff, and we were able to maintain minimal levels of service, which I think we've heard from a number of members of the public that they were quite appreciative of the way that the town looked over the course of the summer. But now I believe that our reopening plans are in jeopardy. As you're aware, over the last few days, the province has seen a spike in cases consistently 3 or 4 days now of over 400. I don't think anybody can deny that we are approaching a second wave. As you're aware, the province over the weekend amended the Reopening Ontario Act and reduced the inside gathering size from 50 people to 10, and the outside gathering size from 100 people to 25. So that will affect what we're doing with our satellite facilities. We've already looked at the different permits that we have for different types of gatherings. Now, the only thing is that the government has said that it does not relate to businesses or organizations that monitor and have put the different precautions and procedures in place. I think they're targeting the gatherings of parties and things like that, and that's great. But the issue that we have is that if we continue to have parties and gatherings in our facilities, the onus is on us now to make sure that we have staff there, and that all of the province's protocols are being followed, and the municipalities' protocols are being followed, and it puts a fair bit of liability on the municipalities. So that is something that we're considering right now. We are moving towards. We are not accepting any permits for indoor gatherings over 10 right now, while we're trying to see whether or not this is something that is logistically possible for our staff to be able to manage, and if it's undue risk to the municipality as well. The Municipal Emergency Control Group is also looking at the reopening plan of recreation, culture, and community development, and looking at what makes sense as we move forward. Are there things that maybe we need to pull back? The ice pads and so on, we are going to continue keeping those open, and we're going to basically be working with the user groups who also have a number, they have their organizations they have to report to as well. So we're working with all of the girls hockey, minor hockey, and so on, and talking about how we can accommodate them. But things like fitness centers, for instance, is this something that we think is viable or safe in the wake of a second wave? So I think you've been hearing all of these news reports regarding the increase in infections and so on. So I'm sure you understand the concerns of the MECG group as we move forward. Those are the comments that I wanted to make before I open it up to questions.
Thank you. Questions to CEO Baker. Councillor Crawford.
This may sound like a naive question, but is the province still under a state of emergency?
No, the province actually lifted their state of emergency. I don't have the date in front of me, but they did lift it, but they kept their orders in place, and they've been extending the timeline for their orders. They also passed the Reopening Ontario Act, and they're able to make regulations under that act.
So when you say they're extending their orders, is that the limiting of people?
They are able to, as they just recently did over the weekend, they did an amendment to the Reopening Ontario Act. As I understand it, the orders that were put in place were legislated, and they're able to extend them. And I believe the next date was supposed to be September 22nd. I think that's in the report, actually. The current provincial orders are in place until September 22nd, will likely be extended for another 3 to 4 weeks thereafter. But they're able to amend that legislation as well, which they did over the weekend.
But that's not, they don't need to be under a state of emergency to do that, just their orders.
That's right.
So the confusing thing I find is that when they started to open up the numbers for people to gather, it really left it up to kind of subject to people's interpretation, which I find is kind of somewhat irresponsible. And the fact that we're all masking, but that we've also forgotten that now that we're masking, we don't social distance. And I think that I would almost like to see, and I don't know if this comes from our staff or messaging or whatever, but an understanding of what those numbers mean, so that there's no room for people to interpret them the way they want to interpret them. I just find it very frustrating. The message just doesn't seem to be specific enough, and just a little bit too vague. And even when you call the health department at Durham Region, you can talk to 3 different people and get 3 different interpretations on what you are supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do, which people are very frustrated by, because generally I think people want to do the right thing, but they're not really getting that cut and dry answer that resonates with them. Anyway, just my soapbox for tonight.
through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can respond. This was discussed actually last week at our MECG that the group has been a little bit frustrated with Durham Region Public Health and the messaging that's been coming out since mid-March. It's been a little weak, and so we, as well as the city of Oshawa, we're increasing our communications to reemphasize all of the different precautions that we need. We've ramped up our stop the spread messaging, and we're very specific on our social media and et cetera for that very reason.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And like I said, I think generally people want to do the right thing. They're just a little bit confused as to what that actually is. But thank you very much for your report.
Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Your Worship. CAO Baker, thank you for that report. You know, the situation of our fitness facilities in Ajax, and it was a bit mumbled there what you said about our town's facilities for fitness. Can you please clear that up for me? Where exactly do we stand, and when do we expect to reopen if that's not being pushed? Please.
So right now we are targeting opening the fitness center in the MCC. I believe it's the beginning of October. There's a number of different procedures and training of staff and so on that needs to take place for us to be able to do that. We are still on target to do that. My concern is that if the numbers continue to rise, is it something that really makes sense for us to be opening? We'll be watching what other municipalities are doing as well, and obviously taking our lead from the province and the public health chief public health officer and so on. But some of these things we have to make decisions on our own, and the fitness centers that we have, except for the one at ARC, but the fitness centers that we have are relatively small. And you know, to Councillor Crawford's point, maintaining social distancing while people are in there, and having people book times and so on, and also we need to understand what the demand is as well. Maybe people won't want to use fitness centers, and we don't want to be wasting you know, residents' tax dollars by opening a fitness center when we have minimal to no use. So these are all things that need to be considered. But right now we are on track to open up that first fitness center to see what the demand is.
Is there a reason why the MCC was chosen? Is that one bigger than the ACC and ARC?
No, what we decided to do was we have a tenant right now in the MCC, the physiotherapist tenant that we have there. So we already have staff working in that center. So we decided to try and be as efficient as we can. And if we already have staff there, then we would use that. We would open that fitness center first without having to put staff in that center as well as other centers.
That makes sense. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Your Worship.
You're welcome. Moving on to Councillor Lee.
You're muted, Sterling.
I'll get better at that, I swear. Through the chair to CEO Baker, in terms of our staffing levels from pre-COVID to where they were now, what percentage of our staff is back to work and not furloughed anymore?
That's a good question. Actually, I don't have those numbers in front of me. I can tell you that all of the redeployed staff, the full-time staff that were redeployed to operations, they are almost 100% back into recreation. And I think there's only 2 left that are still in operations as we're waiting to fill a couple of seasonal positions to backfill for operations. As far as part-time staff returning, we are doing that a little bit slower and trying to make use, because we don't, for instance, we're not doing a lot of programming that recreation, you know, the recreation programming, for instance, dance and music and stuff, things like that. So we haven't hired back all of our part-time staff yet, but we have started to hire some of them back that work in the support the different types of programs and centers that we are opening now.
And from I get we're not getting a ton of feedback saying we should be opening town hall, and I understand that. And I also understand your well-measured rationale why we're not reopening town hall. Realistically, we're anticipating a second wave is imminent, so we kind of want to reduce exposure levels. But when does the MECG suppose town hall will be back and running operational? When will council start going back, if at our choice, to maybe the River Plate room or actual council chambers? Like, what is the timeline for that in your mind right now?
So right now, we're targeting that we remain business as usual right now, our current business as usual until
Right.
January 2021. But to be totally honest, if we do get a full-blown second wave, that may even be pushed out further than that.
Yep.
But that's consistent with other municipalities as well. The region has said that they don't intend to be fully opening until January 2021 either.
No, and it's it's all covered in the report, but ultimately anyone who's watching from home, I just want to make sure we're asking the questions that they may want to know of, like, when are we going to get back to normal is generally the question we're all asking ourselves. And realistically, the realistic, painful answer is we don't know yet. And right now we still have to kind of work as if, so we don't get to the position we were a few months ago where everything was shut down. So, it's hard, but we are all doing our best. So thank you to you and staff for continuing to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CEO Baker, for the report. I fully agree with the slow and steady wins the race approach that the MECG has been taking thus far. And you've made lots of decisions. So I just had a question about, on the report, it says at this time, Durham Region and all Lakeshore municipalities remain under a state of emergency. And I know Councillor Crawford talked a little bit about that, and I'm not sure if it's you or the mayor, but do you have any comment regarding when you see how long Ajax and Durham will continue to be under a state of emergency? Excuse me.
So firstly, I can tell you that, so I still have a weekly call with the CAOs regarding our COVID response so that we keep each other up to speed on what's happening in each individual municipality. And one of the things that we did discuss was that when we do decide to, or when one municipality decides to lift their declared emergency, state of emergency, that we would try and do it in unison if possible. So that the public isn't more confused as to why, for instance, Oshawa's lifted it, but Ajax hasn't. We believe that right now, while the province has their powers under the Reopening Ontario Act, our powers lie under the declared emergency. And we think that it's in our best interest to, until we see a true end to this pandemic, at least in the for the foreseeable future, we remain in a state of emergency. And all the municipalities seem to be of the same mindset. They don't seem to be in a rush to be lifting their declared emergency either.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. And I just had a very quick question out of curiosity regarding when masks became mandated in the region. And I know we all received a lot of feedback. Some was positive, some was negative. And it seems, I think everybody's sort of fallen in line with that. But just from the town perspective, did you guys receive a lot of pushback, or are you receiving that now? Or because it seemed to be that there's really no enforcement needed because people are following the rules. Just curious.
I personally haven't heard of any pushback from people regarding masks. I mean, I have seen different individuals when I go into a store or something, as I'm sure you do, not wearing a mask. And it's now, it seems to me that now there's peer pressure in the opposite side. If somebody isn't wearing a mask in a public place, people who are wearing masks are getting a little upset. And rightly so, especially with the numbers climbing. But I haven't had any reports that we've had any resistance to people wearing masks or being required to wear masks.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Dies.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. I just wanted to ask about the washrooms, our public washrooms. Now that we've gone through COVID already, we're into that second phase. Are we going to have washrooms that are available now that the hub's closed?
I believe, I will have to get back to you on that, Councillor Dice, but I do believe that the region is doing a smaller version of the hub, and I can't remember the details on that. But as far as washrooms go, with the opening of our community centers, there will be washrooms available. Whether they are um, available to the public or just to staff, I'm not sure yet. We're still working through those plans.
Because we will, if we don't have the hub, we will need something for people who are homeless to be able to wash their hands.
Mhm. Yeah,
So that's a concern, right?
yes, absolutely.
The- Sorry.
No, I just was going to say, I don't think that we've actually talked about an alternative for our home as far as being able to use their washrooms and wash up and so on. That's something that we can bring up at our next MECG meeting.
Thank you. That'd be appreciated. I also was really pleased to see the work that you've done with business recovery. I know that many of our small businesses, and we have a majority of small businesses here in Ajax, they were really hurting from the pandemic. And it's nice to see that we supported that, helped them with their patios, and they're a lot of them are phasing back in their work. But what I wondered if you had also gone out to the not-for-profit businesses who are employers as well. I think sometimes we have a better understanding of what's happening in the community if we understand who's looking after who under what specific programs. In the first wave of this pandemic, many of the programs were cut for seniors who live independently. And that's just one example. So, we have CDCD, we've got the newcomer immigrant settlement office there. We've got Salvation Army. There's a lot of really big cornerstones of community service that we have here in Ajax. And I think it's really important that we find out how they're doing and what their needs are and what they're actually working on the community, which will give us a better idea of what's happening out there. So there's that question, and also the same applies for the faith communities. As they've been phasing back in to doing their day-to-day business, I think they were allowed 30% of maybe people in their churches or in their houses of worship. And now we're back again to seeing how they're going to change that, or if they will change that. It gives us an idea of what groups are meeting, what groups aren't meeting, kind of thing, and where those hot spots might be. And I just wondered if we had thought about that.
I'm actually going to ask Jeff Romanowski, Director of Planning and Development, if he can speak to that, because I don't have those details.
Okay.
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Dice. I don't think economic development's directly reached out to the not-for-profit organizations or the places of worship. However, myself and Don Terry, the acting manager of VECD, have discussed, other organizations within the community that we should start engaging to get that kind of understanding for. So that's definitely something that's on our radar. I will be following up with Don tomorrow on a number of fronts at our weekly meeting. So I will be sure to bring that to his attention and see if we can put something together, at least understand what needs to be done, and then update council accordingly.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Worship. Through to you, to the CAO. Thank you, Mr. Baker, for this report and all the reports over the last 5 or 6 months. I'm sure you didn't predict when you got hired by the town of Ajax you'd be dealing with a global pandemic. None of us did. As Regional Councillor Lee said, for those watching at home, can you speak a little bit deeper regarding ICE? I believe 2 pads have opened at the ACC, and is the Village Arena can you confirm which pads are open? Because there's 4 there and 1 at Village.
Yes, so as of September 14th, pads 3 and 4 at the Ajax Community Center were open, and we've also opened the Village Arena as well.
Okay, that's good. And I wondered if you could speak to patio permits. I know with the colder weather coming, most people are starting to pull down their tents, but I know that there are some businesses in and around Ajax that are bringing in patio heaters, wanting to sustain. So how long is the current? I know most of the municipalities in Ontario waive the user fees and permits, which was great. I know I've talked to many of those business owners directly, and they were very appreciative of that. But does that all end near the end of October? And is that something we could, extend if they wanted it?
We have been talking about extending. I wasn't able to attend the MECG meeting today, and it's my understanding that patio permits was discussed. So I'm going to ask Jeff Roman again to answer that question.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Tyler Morin. We did discuss that today at the emergency control group meeting. What we're doing, have we considered it? Absolutely. But we need to understand how many of the businesses that have already taken advantage of the current program that we have in place, whether or not they want to take advantage of extending that into the colder seasons or the colder times of year. We also need to be cautious and just understand what will the asks be? Are they going to look at tents? And if they are looking at tenting their patios, we may not be able to provide a totally free service as we did the first time around, because with sunshine and whatnot, you don't need coverings and those types of things. But as we move into the cooler, colder weather, tents and plastic coverings do not mix well with propane heaters and other types of things. So we want to make sure that first we gauge those that took advantage of it, see whether or not there is an appetite to do that type of permission or put a process in place to provide that service for the restaurants and any other type of an establishment that wants to establish a patio, and then just figure out an appropriate process that is, without red tape and can get them through that process as soon as possible, all the while ensuring that we have the right safeguards and permits in place in order to facilitate that process. So that's where we are right now. And we're just working through some of those details. And this will be a constant discussion that we have at MECG. And right now, our temporary patio process expires as of the end of October. So we have some time to get that feedback and then revise our process accordingly.
Well, it's nice to hear through your worship that it's still part of the conversation. I know that in Toronto, they had done so in specific heaters only. You're right, that could be a real challenge. Thank you so much for your answers, both Mr. Baker and Mr. Romanowski.
Thank you. I think we've been through everybody again. Any other questions? No, I just have one, Mr. Baker, to do with we've got a significant deficit as for the report, six+ million. The first round of recovery funding definitely was very welcome, but when does the window open for the second round application?
The information that we have is that the second round of funding will be available before the end of the year, but I don't believe that we have a date of when it will be announced.
Okay, I just wondered if we were getting ready for that. I certainly hope people heed the warnings. I don't want to have to worry about a third round of funding, but we'll see. Thank you very much for that, Mr. That concludes our presentations. We'll deal with the departmental report in a few minutes. Moving on to items of correspondence, we have very lengthy amount of correspondence today, moved by Councillor Khan, second by Councillor Dyes. For the report dated September 21st, 2020, containing item of correspondence be adopted. I'm only aware of one pull so far. Councillor Dawes, you wanted to pull for endorsement the City of Oshawa one. Does anybody else have any items of correspondence they wish to pull for discussion? Okay. Councillor Dawes, do you want to go ahead on City of Oshawa?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Collier. I just have a question first to the clerk. I'm not sure. I couldn't see the resolution. It's for number 3, page 29, and it's regarding discussions on the request to amend the Ontario Building Code. And this is to advance accessibility. So if there's a new developments, they're looking at how we can get a number of accessible units built in any housing that moves forward, and having discussions on that issue. But I couldn't see the resolution in my package, and I just wondered if that came with this letter.
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the resolution would be within the reference report. There is a link provided on the attached. I can't pull it up at this moment, but you'd be able to find it within that document if it's not part of the original communication from the City of Oshawa.
And the reason I'm asking that, I didn't see it, I'm sorry. I think this is a really important issue. If you don't, not everybody is born with a disability. There are those that are, but obviously as we get older, we often get disabilities and health challenges along the way. And one of the big issues, for housing in the burbs is the fact that we don't have bungalows and we don't have accessible units. And it's a real challenge, particularly for seniors who are independent. They can't find places to live. So I think this is a really, really important conversation to have with the province of Ontario to look at amending that building code, and with all the stakeholders, have input and talk about how we can advance this. So if there is a resolution, I would put it forward for support. But I do.
You've moved this to endorse, which
Yes.
we don't need to see the resolution to endorse
Okay.
this piece of correspondence.
Well, I think we should, we'll obviously send it to Oshawa and let them know we've endorsed it then. I'd appreciate
Okay, moved
that.
by yourself. Who would second the endorsement? Seconded by Councillor Bauer. Hold on, so let me make a note here.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, the resolution is on page 29 in the agenda package. That would be the resolution that would be endorsed.
Okay. Yeah, the province of Ontario be requested to amend the Ontario Building Code and Constitution of Municipalities. Yeah. So on the motion to endorse,
it refers to another. Okay.
Those in favor? Any opposed? Being none, that carries. On the balance, those in favor of receiving the correspondence? None opposed, that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to the Community Affairs and Planning Committee report. We are moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Dawes, that the Community Affairs and Planning Committee report dated September 8th, 2020 be adopted. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the report? Okay, seeing no hands. Those in favor? I see all hands, none opposed. That's carried. Thank you. And to the General Government Committee report, moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Tyler Morin, that the General Government Committee report dated September 14, 2020 be adopted. Any questions or comments on the GGC report? Hearing none. Those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed. That's carried. Moving on to departmental reports, we have the Harwood Avenue North update, moved by Councillor Khan, second by Councillor Lee, that the report entitled Harwood Avenue North update be received for information. Any questions or comments on the report? Councillor Khan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Question to planning. This is all great. We know you're gonna do the EA for the widening. I just want an update on what's happening about the crossing at Haskell that I've been inquiring about. Can anybody give me an update where we are with that right now?
Mr. Romanowski? Or Mr. Grieve?
Through the chair to Councillor Khan, I'll ask, John Grieve is on the line. I'll ask him to provide an update as he's dealing with all matters related to this Harwood Avenue North corridor.
Thank you, Mr. Grieve. I believe this is referred back and coming back to council in October, isn't it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no. This report is the follow-up from our June 15th council meeting where the motion regarding the Harwood and Haskell crossing was discussed. And as outlined in the staff report, staff intend to proceed with the EA design and construction of the Harwood widening, and that the Harwood and Haskell intersection improvements would be incorporated into that widening. So that's the update on the crossing.
But with all due respect, that has nothing to do with the crossing. That's the widening, which is a totally different aspect. My residents have been asking for a crossing. You're telling me you have to wait until 2023 to look at a crossing? We've been discussing a crossing, Mr. Grieve. I understand there's a widening in line, but our residents are asking for a crossing, and I understand that you're going to do a study and bring it back to us in October. The widening is a different topic. I'm actually looking for a crossing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Khan. As discussed in our June 15 report, we presented two options. There was the construction of a pedestrian crossing or the signalization, which was outlined in the widening of Harwood. As discussed in that meeting, planning staff requested additional time to see the progression of other developments. And as outlined in the report presented to you today, staff have made the recommendation to proceed with construction or proceed with the EA and ultimately the widening, which will have improvements to Harwood and Haskell intersection. So this was the direction that was discussed in our June meeting.
I guess, Mr. Grieve, the question being asked is, with the widening, will there be the crosswalk there at Haskell?
With the widening, there will be a full signalization of the Harwood and Haskell intersection, which would include a pedestrian crossing, as all full signalized intersections do.
We're talking about 2023, correct?
Yes, the current projection, I believe, operations has placed the construction in the 2023 time horizon.
So there is no intention of creating a safety pedestrian crossing for our residents, correct? And I'm saying this loudly because I want my residents to hear that I am fighting for it and I'm getting pushback that I cannot get a pedestrian crossing when I've had residents being ran over. And I brought that up clearly, and still I have to wait until 2023 for a pedestrian crossing.
Through the mayor to you, Councillor Khan, as outlined in our June report, we presented you with those costs and those options, and that option still is at your discretion. Staff in that report noted that intersection improvements would be incorporated in the widening, and that any pedestrian crossing that is put in advance of that widening would have to be thrown away and redone as part of that widening.
And I understand that, but I can't possibly tell my residents to wait 3 more years for them to cross the street safely.
Well, Councillor Khan, I'll try and help. I'll use Millington as an example. You know, we could go and put this in, but it's still got to go through budget and planning and design. So it would probably be 2 years anyway. What Mr. Grieve is saying is if we went ahead with it now, those are basically throwaway costs. We'd spend the money to do it now, and then in 3 years, when the road is ultimately widened, that money would be lost. So,
but Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, again, it's 3 years. Are you telling me the lives of our residents is not worth it to invest some money and even having to throw it away?
No, what I'm telling you is it's a process, and we have to go through the process. And looking at the Millington Lights, for example, that took quite a bit longer than 3 years.
But this is off the table now. Like, it's totally off the table. Milton was still on the table.
It's not off the table. It's part of the Harwood Avenue widening, which is now being put in the capital budget, and is entering into design and environmental assessment, which obviously takes time to go through design and EA. Then it will be tendered and go ahead. But that takes the time to go through the process.
I understand that.
Am I saying that right, Mr. Grieve?
Yes, you are, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
But this was all discussed about the widening of Harwood. Mr. Mayor, can you give me any direction how I can proceed with this? Because I can't really shelf this.
Well, I think if you brought a motion back, and I think it was in June, that staff look at this and report back, which they did. Since then, we've had some developments happen up there which have triggered the widening or the accelerating of the widening of Harwood. I think widening Harwood has always been in the plans. But now with the Grandview and with the long-term care facility going in, that is sort of triggered, and the issues with the traffic with the mosque there have all triggered the acceleration of this project. So I think if it had still been in the original time frame, putting a specific pedestrian crossing probably would have been the way to go, because it would have been an infill type thing for a temporary measure. But given now it makes sense to do it at the same time. If you wanted to change that, I think you would have to bring a motion to go ahead and put that in, and that's how that would have to be done.
Thank you. Thank you for the direction, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Grieve and Mr. Romanowski.
Any other questions?
Through the chair, though, couldn't
Councilor
we?
Lee.
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, Councilor Dias. I think you had a question before me, but couldn't we just propose an amendment to the report to add in the crosswalk now and just vote on it now?
Let me go back here. Let's look at Mr. Clerk. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just pull up the recommendations from the report. This is simply a report for information. If a member wished to move an amendment to this recommendation to give direction to staff, that would be in order.
So yeah, could I just not move an amendment to the staff report on Harvard Avenue North to include a pedestrian crosswalk at Haskell?
I might second that.
Well, just 1 second. That already is part of the project. Mr. Grieve clearly said it will be a full interchange or a full pedestrian, like a traffic signalized intersection at Haskell, including pedestrian crosswalk. So that's already in the plan. What Councillor Khan wants to do, I think, is put in a crosswalk
manual crosswalk, right?
Now, and then that will be replaced in 3 years when this project goes ahead.
3 years, yes.
Well, I'm just, Councillor Khan's asking, what can we do? And, we hear from the same residents. It may not be a priority for the rest of council. We understand that, but, to answer his question of what can we do, this is it, right? I'm going to put forth an amendment to the Ajax report of Harvard Avenue North to include a pedestrian crosswalk at Haskell and Harwood. And that'd be seconded by Councillor Khan. And then, listen, if it, we've done everything at this point. If council doesn't support that, that's up to council not to support that. But this is the last thing we can do. And then afterwards, we'd have to get a reconsideration to get it back on the floor.
Mr. Grieve, could you, well, I'm going to go first with the questions, because I'm going to have a really hard time supporting this without knowing the costs and everything else that's involved. And I don't remember the report back from Councillor Khan's original motion. Mr. Grieve, can you just refresh my memory and council's memory on what the recommendations were there and the costs?
Yes, I can, Mr. Mayor. Just pulling that up right now. So,
I believe
So
that-
from the June report, which we presented to council, the pedestrian crossing, the preliminary estimate that we provided at that time was approximately $85,000. And within the report, we noted that a full traffic signal would cost $350,000. But as noted today, that full signal cost is incorporated with the cost estimate associated with the widening of Haskell, or the widening of Hartwood.
Is it possible to do this with it not being a throwaway cost?
In my opinion, the pedestrian crossing, that would be 100% throwaway cost. The only approach council could take, which would represent not 100% throwaway cost, would be to do some sort of signalization. The design could be such that certain signal heads are preserved through the widening. Obviously, that would involve a much larger financial commitment at this point, but would result in some savings when the widening proceeded.
And if this amendment passes today, what's the process this has to go through? It still has to go through design, correct?
Correct. And whatever crossing type, if it is pulled or advanced in front of the widening, there would be a full design process that would need to be completed, as well as tendering. We would also need direction as to when this should take place, i.e., should this be considered in the 2021 budget, or split over the 2021 and 2022 budget.
So how long would it take if this amendment was passed today for this to be put in?
Simply into our budget submission would take a number of days. Our budget submission would include a design exercise and a construction project. Obviously would still require approval ultimately when that budget is considered.
No, but I mean to do the design, to do the installation, how long does that take?
If we're speaking to the pedestrian crossover, I would estimate the design to be 2 to 4 months, with construction at approximately the same timeline. Construction of a full signal, again, probably 2 to 4 months, but construction may be slightly longer.
Yeah, the signal is not the amendment though. So we're looking at the start of next summer regardless.
Correct. That would be my opinion. It would be start of next summer construction at the earliest.
And when you prepared the original report, did it meet the warrant?
The warrant for full signalization, yes.
Okay. So by doing this, we're not doing something that's, I think we had a very long discussion about this at our last 1 or 2 meetings ago about council initiated traffic calming. And I know we don't want to do that. So, but this would fit, you're saying.
This is, as I said,
okay. Questions? Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Your Worship. To you, Mr. Grieve, so just to confirm, you said to put in a pedestrian crossing, which would address a very important issue of making sure people can cross that road safely. It would be $85,000-ish?
Through the mayor to Councillor Tyler Moore. Yes, that was our preliminary estimate.
Okay. And the road meets the traffic warrants on a full signalization. So then, I don't know if you're able to answer now, but would we assume that it would also meet the traffic warrant to get pedestrians across that street safely? Is that question even makes sense? But
through the mayor to Councillor Tyler Moore, the threshold or the test for a pedestrian crossover is slightly different from a full signal. But yes, the purpose to get pedestrians across is met through a pedestrian crossing.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Crawford?
Thank you, Your Worship. The most frustrating thing about being on council is the length of time that anything can get done. And it's not that anyone tries to make it frustrating, it just ends up being that frustrating and being that length of time. Millington Light, and I'm only going back to that because that is the only experience that I've had, well, that in Riverside. Riverside took me over 2 years to get anyone to listen to, and Millington, I believe, Your Worship, was 4. Is that correct?
Something like that. Yeah, we worked on that for a while.
So, you know, I realize the frustration of our residents. I certainly heard the frustration of our residents, and I can hear the frustration of Councillor Khan's voice. And it's not that I would not, it's not that I don't believe that this is an important crossing. I think it's absolutely a critical crossing. The point that I would only want to make is that we've already heard from the COVID report, we're already $6 million in deficit in our budget. I don't know what that looks like when it comes to budget time. This would be an unbudgeted number into the capital funds when in 2 years it's paid for by road widening by the developers, I guess. And so for me, the struggle, quite honestly, Councillor Khan, is just about the money. It's not. I know we try to put value on our residents with money. And I think in the perfect world without a pandemic and everything else, this is something that probably could have been considered as an unbudgeted item. But my concern is spending, I'm sorry, I missed the number. My screen froze. Was it 200,000?
No, 85,000.
85,000? In just in a year that we're going to have some issues with our budget anyway, and I don't know. That's just my comments. That nothing in municipal government moves faster than a snail. It's the most frustrating thing that I have come up against, and so I'm open to listening to what all the other councillors have to say.
Okay, I haven't seen any other hands yet. Councillor Dice.
Thank you. Most of my questions have been answered. Basically, I would like to know, this construction, was it to go in tandem with the Schlegel property construction and the improvements they were going to make on Harwood?
I understand that's part of the trigger, but Mr. Grieve?
Yes, through you, Mayor, to Regional Councillor Dies. Yes, that's part of the purpose for advancing the EA design and construction, is the approval of the Schlegel Village along with the advancement of the Grandview property. Those planning development staff felt those were two of the triggers, along with the other general congestion and the Harwood and Haskell intersection issues, as to why we chose to advance the EA and propose it for next year, followed by design and construction.
So the EA goes into next year's capital budget, but the detailed design and construction is in the long-range capital forecast, and you're saying it may be 2023, but would that not depend on when the developer was ready to go as well? Because we wouldn't have really a number at that point until we have those details.
So through the Mayor to Regional Councillor Dies, the construction across or in the vicinity of those developments potentially could be advanced dependent on the needs, and the town would enter into a sort of front-ending agreement associated with those improvements. But if at our understanding, at least preliminary, those projects are approximately 2 years away from completion at least, and so we believe we have aligned ourselves associated with the road widening to be in appropriate timing associated with them as well.
So would we have a little bit more information going into the capital budget about the cost of this and the timing?
So through the Mayor to you, Regional Councillor Dies, the EA would the EA, which is being proposed to be completed in 2021, would help inform the cost of detailed design and construction, which would then be in the future budget. So the estimate you see, or you will see in the 2021 capital budget submission is as accurate as we can at this point. But then future capital budget submissions would be then informed by that study, which will be completed in 2021 if approved. The EA is can be completed within the year 2021.
So we're going to see this, we're going to have this discussion, obviously, in our capital budget process soon. A couple of months, is that correct?
Through the mayor to the regional council guys, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
I realized I didn't get a chance to speak on that. That's on me. I should have kept going. But I don't know. I understand everyone's concerns with costs. I do, and I understand the Millington set a precedent in terms of timing of 4 years approximately. But ultimately, it was a catalyst of a major accident that unfortunately caused a fatality that generated the expediency on Millington. I guess what Councillor Khan and I are saying is that Haskell is that intersection for us. It's I don't want to say do, because that's unfair, right? No one can look into a crystal ball, but we're trying our best to prevent, serious fatality. This has been something that Councillor Khan's been on and on about since we started council, numerous reports. That's why I'm putting this in now. I understand this is, this is not the technical way to put through budget items, but it's important enough for us to keep fighting for this. And I guess what we're saying is we can't wait the 3 years. It's a non-starter for us. So, I want to make sure that our residents know that we used every procedural staff, every trick in the book we could to get this done. If it gets voted down, then I have to begrudgingly accept that. But I wouldn't, and I think I speak for Councillor Khan as well, we wouldn't be able to sleep at night if we didn't try everything at our disposal. So that's why this amendment is coming in the way it is. I will typically 1,000% go through the budget process, but this has been a hanging issue for the past 2 years now that I'd like to see some sort of resolution on. And obviously I'll call for a recorded vote on this, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with what Councillor Crawford brought forward a few minutes ago. We just had a report from our CAO that says, we have a over $12 million shortfall. And then we're expecting to not be able to meet, over $4 million of shortfall unless we get some more help from the federal government. And then to say that we want to throw away, $85,000, it could be more, who knows? I'm not comfortable with that, knowing that it's COVID, we don't even know if those numbers, it could even be worse by the end of this. Who knows how long this is going to last. So I do understand the importance of keeping our residents safe on the streets. I could name you right now 4 or 5 intersections in Ward 3 that I would be just as passionate as Councillor Khan and Councillor Lee, but there is a process. I'm happy to see that the Harwood widening has been moved up from where it was initially slated to be, so that's good news. But I don't know that I can support that, knowing that we are in a shortfall position across the town. But thank you very much.
Any other speakers? Seeing none, I only asked questions before. It's kind of, this is a toughie because, I sympathize, but just because residents ask or demand for something doesn't mean it happens. It does have to go through a process, and we've gone through that process. And before this discussion, I thought seeing this Harwood Avenue North update and that Harwood Avenue is being accelerated, to me, that's a big win. Accelerating the widening of that's our main north-south, one of our main north-south routes. So being able to accelerate the timing on that, and to me, in planning, 3 years is not a long time in planning. If you get a project done in 3 years, that's pretty quick when you're going through a municipal time frame as far as getting the everything in place. And the other is, this is a capital project, and our capital budget, I'm not sure what the situation is, given that we've lost, something in the neighborhood of $6 million from our slots, which feeds right into our capital budget. I'm thinking with the changes that the province has just made, reducing from 50 to 10, might mean that the casino might not be opening September 28th. They can't open it for 10 people. I think it was a stretch to open it for 50. So it's a toughie. But then on the other hand, it does meet the warrants. And a pedestrian crossing is warranted at that location. And there was a near fatal accident there fairly recently. And I don't know, I hope that lady has recovered. Your friend, Councillor Khan. I think that was that intersection, but so it's a bit back and forth. If this was not warranted, if it didn't meet the warrants, I couldn't support it. It does meet the warrants, so I am inclined to support it. Again, in planning, 85,000 is a big number, but in the budget process and in a planning process, it's a reasonable number for doing something like this, and I think safety is paramount. So anyway, those are my comments. Mr. Clerk, I believe a recorded vote was called.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to bring up the wording of the amendment on screen first to get confirmation from the mover and seconder.
Approved.
That works for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A recorded vote has been called on the amendment. Please state your position in favor or opposed. Regional Councillor Lee.
You're muted, Sterling.
In favor. I'll stop. I'm sorry, guys.
Councillor Bauer.
Opposed?
Regional Councillor Crawford.
Opposed?
Regional Councillor Dyes.
Opposed?
Councillor Khan.
In favor.
Councillor Tyler Morin.
In favor.
Mayor Collier.
In favor. So that passes on a 4-3. On the main motion as amended, on the report as amended, do we have any further discussion? Case hearing none. Those in favor of the report as amended? Any opposed? None opposed. That's carried. Moving on to the contract award for the annual IT hardware upgrades and replacements, moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Bauer. The council award the contract for hardware upgrade and replacements as required. And that staff be authorized to continue utilizing the contract for an additional 3 years pending satisfactory performance to a maximum amount of $750,000. Questions or comments on the IT? Councillor Lee.
Unmuted this time. Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, I believe this goes to Director of LIS, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I guess my first question is, what is the difference between what's labeled as a management laptop versus a standard laptop? So ultimately, I think I understand the need for different departments for different specs for laptops. Like I imagine planning will use, CAD or other graphical intensive computers. But, the standard manager that we have that's mainly administrative is using Microsoft Office and Chrome. What is the difference between that? And, is there some sort of policy that we can change to ensure that it's more based on not so much title, but actual requirements?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will attempt to answer the question and may lean on our Manager of Technology and Innovation, Mr. Chris Walker, who's also on the call tonight. So the difference is a bit of an older standard. It reflects the fact that prior to COVID-19, management staff would receive the equipment necessary to be a bit more mobile than standard staff, on the expectation that they would be bringing that equipment with them to meetings and offsite locations. As you can imagine, as a result of the pandemic, we've had to deploy a lot of new equipment recently through IT to get staff much more mobile. One of the differences that we're trying to work towards is to achieve a better degree of standardization of laptop and hardware equipment for staff. So speaking to exactly that point, we are working towards standardizing on a single model for most corporate uses. And then what you suggested, where staff have particular specialized needs, either because of applications or specializations that they have, we would select the hardware based on those needs specifically and scale up or scale down accordingly.
Okay, I'm very happy to hear that, because ultimately, you know, like we shouldn't be spending what could be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars more for someone mainly using Microsoft Office, and that includes council. Like ultimately, I don't think many of us use our Surface in the tablet mode. I won't speak for everyone, but I know I don't. So we could save a few bucks by scaling me back, for example. So just a general question there. Now my next question is more on the specific purchasing agreement. The prices that were listed, I know they're general prices. Are they inclusive of HST?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, they're not inclusive of HST. The prices that are listed in the report are simply an example. We wanted to take an opportunity to illustrate going through the OECM contract, what the difference on a per unit basis might be for acquiring some of this hardware. And over the life of the contract for the remainder of this year and the 3 years following, to give you an idea of kind of the net savings that the town would achieve by participating in this agreement.
Sure, and that's a good segue. And generally, like when staff get a new computer, they quote unquote flash them, right? With the Town of Ajax software, all the programs they need, take off all the bloatware. Like it comes as, you know, like, and no matter what computer or where it comes from, there's a flashing process involved, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I may defer that question to Mr. Walker, as it's a little outside of my specialization.
Mr. Walker?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Lee, you're correct. We call it imaging, so flashing, same thing. We do add a standard image to all of our laptops, PCs that meet our corporate standard, correct?
So if that's the case, then why are we buying our laptops from Best Buy? So I did like a cost analysis, and like your standard laptop of like an i5, 8 gigs of RAM, it's about like $791, which is cheaper than what the OECM price you had listed, and a premium laptop depending on the specifications. I'm just wondering, like, why don't we just buy it through like a Best Buy, which we have like right up the street from us, kind of get a cheaper standard of laptop, and then, you know, save in a sense. Wouldn't that provide savings to the taxpayer?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things I could speak to there. So we use business model laptops. So they are meant to kind of handle day-to-day, being on for basically 7 to 8 hours a day, so longer battery life. They are meant to, you know, ideally no one's dropping them or things like that, but they're not the same type of models that you would get at Best Buy for home use. So that would be one of the reasons why they are a little bit more expensive. So that would obviously save us replacing them more often. They do last longer, battery life, et cetera, et cetera. Couple other reasons, we tend to buy laptops and other devices in bulk. We don't just buy one-offs. So this vehicle, the OECM, does allow us to buy these in volume, like in volume batches and in volume prices, which is very ideal for us. Yeah, and then just the OECM itself. Again, like you don't get certain services that you from Best Buy or Costco or wherever. In terms of through deals like this with the OECM, we do you know, get kind of white glove service, I guess would be how I describe it. You know, they can image it for us, to your point before, Councillor Lee. So that's kind of some overhead away from us.
Okay.
They provide more services. We can get them literally the next day. If your laptop broke, we could get a new one the next day. So these are all services we can't get from Best Buy. So there are kind of some behind the scenes advantages as well.
No, I mean, like ultimately, I accept those answers. I mean, like it's I just, don't get me wrong, you guys came in under budget, if I'm not mistaken, for the workstation replacement at like 4,300. But I'm now building a crosswalk. Hopefully building a crosswalk for 85,000. So just trying to find additional savings where we can on the capital side. So I mean, ultimately, you answered my questions. So I accept those answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And the report on the presentation for CAO Baker, the COVID-19 response update, moved by Councillor Tyler Morin, second by Councillor Dyes, that Ajax Council received this report for information. Any further comments on the presentation? Seeing none, those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you. Regional Council reports. Do we have any regional council reports? Councillor Crawford?
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update on the red light cameras have come live. One at, I think it's Thixon and Dundas went live last week, and the one at Delaney and Westney goes live on, it's Friday the 25th. It's the 25th. So I think it's Friday. The reason for the delay on that one was that when they did their data collecting to begin with, they caught 185 cars in violation. And the majority of those were turning right-hand turn lanes because there is no dedicated right-hand turn lane at Delaney and Westney or at Westney and McGill, whichever way you're going. And so unless you come to a complete stop behind the white line before you make the right-hand turn, you get dinged with a $350 ticket. That's the way it goes. So what the team has decided is that they were going to have the police out there this week educating residents on what needed to be done when making a right-hand turn at that intersection. I still think that we're going to have some issues and some challenges, as I don't think we're obviously going to hit all the residents that use that intersection. The automated speed enforcement went live on September the 8th. We suspect that anybody who was speeding over the designated limit or the threshold should be receiving tickets sometime this week. We'll have some kind of idea of how many people were ticketed in that location on Bailey, likely by our next Vision Zero meeting. Another update from Works, we had an update on the waste management system. What I had asked during that meeting was where we were on the recycling lids that were showcased, is it 2 years ago now? I guess 2 years ago. They were supposed to be in this year's budget. They were in this year's budget. We were working on getting them, getting a company to help pay as naming rights on that. I understand we're very close to that. However, the Works Committee, for whatever reason, believes that they need to do yet another pilot. They're going to pilot 1,000 homes across Durham, and they're going to run it for 8 months, which means this pilot is extending quite a bit longer than what we initially had anticipated. So again, I think that starts the summer of next year. And so that's just the kind of brief update from the 2 committees that I sit on.
Thank you. Does any other member of Regional Council have a report they wish to bring forward. I'll just comment on a couple of the things that I serve on. The first being finance. So let me pull this up, please. The first being finance. We had our meeting and we discussed the what do they refer to it? The business planning budget risk, or basically the property tax guideline. And in that discussion, we approved a 2% target increase at the region based on, and that is pretty much a status quo budget. That is something that just to maintain, and that is a guideline. The actual original ask came in much higher than that, but that's a direction that has been given. And part of that includes, I think it was a 3%, but projected increase for DRPS, which I did question. There is a number of things in that budget, but one of the things that came out that I think Councillor Crawford will be talking about in her motion coming up is, I think it was the 3.8 million for the body worn cameras, which has been brought forward, but is not in the police budget increase that they're asking for yet. So it's currently unfunded, and that's something that's going to need to be addressed. And then the four of us attended a fairly lengthy committee of the whole meeting on last Wednesday, where we discussed the economic development plan to start pre-servicing employment lands, which is very important. We, Ajax Council, had the foresight to pre-service our employment lands in 2007. And, you know, we just got Amazon and a lot of other things looking at going on those space. So creating the environment is the way that we can help move forward our economic development. The other thing that was of note at that meeting was the report on our sort of joint venture for the anaerobic digestion and pre-sort, and the region and EPCOR parting ways. So that's going to be interesting where that goes moving forward. And finally, transit. The August 24th changes being on-demand service in low rider routes was delayed. It just wasn't ready. That's rolling out at the end of this month. All the details are available on the Durham Region Transit website. There's an amazing new app which will help with the on-demand service and people accessing that. And we also now have an electronic Presto just for DRT. So the Presto Pass is something that's used across the province, but it has its quirks when it comes to loading and a number of things. So DRT has developed their own app for Presto online, which can only be used on DRT, and it creates a completely touchless fare paying method, which is really great. And all those details are available online. Any questions regarding regional council reports? Actually, moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Khan, that the regional council reports of the September 21st be received for information. Questions? Councillor Lee.
On the Presto piece, yeah, I mean, you're very polite in saying what you said. I mean, it's a mess. Can I finally upload my money onto my Presto card through the DRT app? Online or through a credit card?
No. You can set up, that's all Metrolinx. That's not us.
No. I want to make it, I'm very clear. It's absolutely nothing to do with you.
Set up, for instance, I have on my Presto where I have it set for $50 top up and my
credit a Starbucks card. Yeah.
So when it drops below $5, it bumps it back up to 50. Right. But as far as ours, again, you can't do that. You still have to go to one of the point of sale places to load it, but it's a tap feature now. You can use your phone. You no longer have to carry the Presto card on DRT. You still will need the Presto card on Go.
Is it based on, sorry to get technical, but it's NFC technology presumably? So your phone needs NFC in order to do that?
I don't know what NFC is.
Okay, I'll look it up. Sorry about that. But yes, just if you could use your Force's transit chair to get Metrolinx to update their Presto so that it's in line with the rest of the world for the past 30 years.
Right. You know
Much
what?
appreciated.
Tim Hortons figured it out. I don't know why Metrolinx can't.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. But thank you.
in order
thank you,
to
Chair.
get the provincial gas tax, you have to accept the Presto on your network. So that's the carrot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it or not. Any other questions on regional council reports? Seeing none. Those in favor receive for information. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to motions, we have two motions printed in the agenda and we have one motion being introduced. So we need to suspend the rules to allow this motion without notice. So we have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure moved by Councillor Dias, second by Councillor Bauer, that the rules of procedure be suspended in order to introduce a motion without notice regarding the Durham Region Police body worn cameras project, and this requires 2/3 vote. Those in favor? Okay, I see everybody's hand. And none opposed? So we suspended the rules. Councillor Crawford, please go ahead.
Thank
Point of
you.
order, Chair. Excuse me, Councillor Crawford. Just for reference, because I mean this is important. Do walk-ons take precedence over the existing motions that are business arising from motion?
No, I'm just going by the
Yeah,
order.
okay. Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yes,
After
no,
you,
no,
Councillor
they do not. I'm just going in the order that I have here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does matter to me. Okay. I did circulate this motion, I think this afternoon. I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to read it. Does anybody want me to read it? It's kind of long. Councillor Khan, do you want me to read it for you? No? Okay. So just a background, I think it was in July, I brought a motion forward to Regional Council to have the body worn camera committee reactivated with the idea that we would have a report sent back to the police board and then ultimately come back to Regional Council, which it has gone back to the police board and is, I think, slated to come back next week to Regional Council. So this really just reinforces that Ajax Council believes that we want everyone to know that we support the notion that the body worn cameras should be implemented and should be part of, let's see, can we go down to the whereby? Yeah, there we go. That Ajax Council supports and adopts a body worn camera for Durham Regional Police and recommends that the necessary funding for the program be allotted by the Regional Council and or through reallocation of funds or resources from the DRPS budget. So, and then have that copied out to everyone. So I don't, I know we cannot direct the Durham Regional Police. Lord knows I've been told that a number of times with the many motions that I put out. But this is simply a suggestion that however we need to get it into the budget, we need to get it into the budget. And we believe that this is a very important step to regaining the trust of the public with our police. And also it's an excellent training tool for police and accountability and transparency and all of the other areas. So I'm hoping that I have the support of council. At the time, would it be appropriate to have a recorded vote, Your Worship?
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Lee. Unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crawford covered a ton of it. She's been doing great work with the Police Service Board, just like hounding them to make sure this comes to light. I'm under no illusion that body worn cameras will solve all issues with modern policing. I don't think that, but I think it's a very good first step. And we need to get it on the budget. We need the regions to take it seriously. We need them to understand that unequivocally, other municipalities supported Toronto. We need to say as a result, together, that how important this is. On the same note, though, the fight will continue because then once it gets to the budget, we'll figure out the rules behind it, whether cops can turn them on or off or whatever, or Police Service Board will do that. But I think this is just a very, very important first step in letting our residents know that, yes, we're not blind to what's happening in the world right now. And this, there's been a lot of cases in the States, some in Canada, where body worn footage has come in to exonerate someone or to support a contradicting report from the police. And it's also supported the police as well, because right now, everyone has a camera phone, we're all recording it, but we're also editorializing what's happening. Whereas a police officer could very well be following every single protocol, but it just may look more excessive than possible. And that's where the body worn camera will also protect the police as well. So I was very happy to second this and I hopefully council can support this. Thank you.
Any other comments? I just will quickly, yeah, I agree and fully support the body worn cameras. I fully support embracing all technology that we can do to help police do their job, whether it be unmanned speed enforcement, whether it be red light cameras, whether it be body worn or the body worn cameras. It also it protects not only the residents but all the public, but also DRPS, as you said, Councillor Lee, because it does document everything, and that's very, very important these days. But I just also wanted to point out that the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force has also submitted a letter in support of this as well. And this is time sensitive. Generally, we don't want to have walk-on motions, but this is time sensitive. It's being dealt with at the end of this month, so it's important that we get our thoughts out there. So I'll be glad to support it. Mr. Clerk, I believe a recorded vote's been called for, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the resolution before council, please state your position in favor or opposed. Regional Councillor Crawford.
In favor.
Councillor Bauer.
In favor.
Regional Councillor Dyes.
In favor.
Councillor Khan.
In favor.
Regional Councillor Lee.
You're muted, bro. I mean, sorry, Councillor Lee.
In favor. I'm sorry. In favor, Clerk. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Tyler Morin.
In favor.
Mayor Collier.
In favor. That passes unanimously. Moving on to the next motion, Councillor Bauer, Food Industry Worker Day. I'll turn it over to you.
Turn to unmute. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mayor. This is also a very lengthy motion. I hope everyone had a chance to read it a couple times. This to me is very timely. It's a thank you motion. It came out of a sense of gratitude. The last 6 or 7 months have really shown us what we're made of, what this beautiful, wonderful, awesome town is made of. And, one of the action items in our strategic plan is communicate and celebrate the good work being done by the town. And, I just want to maybe massage that a little bit, because as we all know, without our residents, we don't have a town. So I remember seeing something in the news in around April, May, where we have redefined our heroes as a result of the pandemic. And of course, it's our frontline workers. Of course, it's our first responders. Absolutely. And well-deserved. They receive our thanks and our drive-by parades and our window decals, everything we can possibly do to show our support. But the other place that I thought was really somewhere, that was amazing to me was places like the grocery store and, the restaurants that were staying open, often at a loss, or just everything where, as an adjacent, we all knew that we didn't know what was going on, but we knew that we had people working for us to keep our stores stocked, our fresh food coming in, our produce being plentiful. We had cashiers who were able to, we didn't have cashiers to bring us out. We couldn't buy the stuff. We had all the farmers working, the migrant workers, so everybody that was able to keep our tables full, and which really helped us feel secure. So this Food Industry Worker Day motion comes, I think, at a very timely time as we are all gearing up towards Thanksgiving, which is usually centered around family and food. It's the harvest time. So that's why I wanted this motion to come forth. And it was very interesting for me to learn that the agri-food industry employs almost 8,000 people in our region alone. So, It's not a small thing. So that's sort of the reasoning for it. I actually just want to share that part of this, I really wanted, I had received a lot of comments and discussion points about farmers markets and how we're supporting local. And so I did inquire with that, and I do want to thank Don Terry and Economic Development, who did some research for me, and Rachel Matheson, that we tried to get a farmers market in the Ajax for around this time as well. And I was advised that there aren't enough farmers to service another farmers market in Durham region at this time, because they're also busy at their own farms or at other farmers markets. But we've asked to be considered the next location when an opening arises. And also in the meantime, the town of Ajax is exploring the possibility of adding a farmers market to a couple of existing events next year, where we already have the plan in place, and we'll add a farmers market. So that's where this came from. I hope that you will support it. It really is a motion of gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Being none, moved by Councillor Bauer, second by, oh, sorry, did I see your hand, Councillor Dice? Go ahead.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add to that how fortunate we are to have the agriculture industry as the #1 industry here in Durham, and on Prime 1 agricultural lands that are actually used for that. And we're very, very lucky. And that's why we have so many farms here where we can go and buy fresh produce as well. So you could go actually to visit a farm. A lot of them have activities for children, and it's a real tourism boost as well for the region. So I would encourage people to do that. There's some wonderful places in Durham to explore, and I'll tell you, the fresh produce lasts way longer than what you purchase in the stores. So it's well worth it. And we do appreciate the work that goes into that. And we have a Durham Agriculture Advisory Committee at the regional level, and they just had a virtual farm tour this year, and it was about pig farming and chicken farming, which we forget about as well. We really have everything at our fingertips here in Durham. So I would really encourage you to go and search for some places that are close to where you live. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Being none, those in favor? I see all hands. Any opposed? None. That carries. Thank you. And our final motion is Councillor Lee. Please go ahead after you unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. This is a continuation of the endorsement of Oshawa's motion, I think in August. More or less, I think it's really imperative we start regulating as much as we can municipally the idea of payday loan stores. They're completely predatory, and they really expose and prey on the vulnerable. Like, it's not people, we do well in our lives, and we've never had to go to a payday loan store because any one of us could walk into a bank and we'll get serviced, and that's fine. But people, banks also are profit centers where they neglect some of the most vulnerable, and these groups of stores have now taken advantage of these people and their desperation. I wanted the motion to just halt them altogether, but I was advised by legal and staff that it's better if we do a staff report, so that's fine. But the intent of the motion is to truly create a process through bylaws to limit the amount we have in Ajax. I think the motion says right there we have about 20 in Ajax, and Ajax isn't even that big. And more importantly, we have some right by the casino, and I'm sure we'll have even more right by the new casino when that's fully up and running. And I want to make sure that we're protecting our residents as much as we can. I'll just kind of give you just a numerical kind of comparison. For a cash advance of $1,000, you're expected to pay $150 interest the next pay cycle. That's an annualized interest rate of 391%. So give you conceptual, your credit card is 20%, and this is 391%. If you do an installment loan through them, you're paying upwards of 49%. So that's awful. And, and I think we can do something to just limit our exposure and our residents' exposures to this. And a key part of this motion is at the end there, where if the clerk could just scroll to the very bottom. We also want to assist in the advocacy of it and reach out to charter banks, reach out to credit unions, the ones who don't have these predatory interest rates, and ensure that they're looking out for their customers as well, whether it's setting up shop or setting up. We should have postal banking as well as an option. I just want to make sure we're examining everything we can in following with the advocacy of that. So hopefully council can support this, because I think it's really important that we follow OSHA's lead on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for bringing this motion forward, Councillor Lee. I'm happy to second it. I think we looked at the same research material. I'll throw another statistic out, looking at some of these places there that offer installment loan lines of credit, I should say, with an annual interest rate posted on the website of almost 47%. So, and there's also that, many people, many people benefit from the professional advice of a financial advisor. These facilities, I don't believe offer, I don't believe they hire professional advisors. And, it may not be the best place for someone who really is in dire need of making ends meet to go and get that advice that they really need, or maybe some other options. So I do agree that we need to look after our residents in this way. We have these facilities. I'm not sure that we need any more. And I love the idea of bringing our financial institutions into the communities where everyone has access and everyone has equal access to prudent rates and good ways to save and save their money. So thank you. I hope everyone supports this too.
Thank you. Anything further? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? That's carried. Now, next is the authority to hold a closed meeting, moved by Councillor Khan, second by Councillor Dies. The council convened to a closed session pursuant to section 239, paragraph 2, subparagraph B and K of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, to discuss personnel matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. That's a mouthful. Anybody want to speak to this motion? Good. Those in favor? That carries.
Hey,
You're alternate. You're in the middle.
Mr. Mayor, we are live again.
Hold on. Oh, okay, we're live again? Okay, ratify actions taken in closed session. We have moved by Councillor Khan, second by Councillor Bauer, that all directions approved in the closed session be ratified. Those in favor? Any opposed? None, that's carried. Bylaws, I need a mover and seconder for the bylaws, please.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Lee, seconded by Councillor
Crawford.
Khan.
That's spelled K-H-A-N.
K-H-A-N.
CRAWFORD.
The bylaw, I know it's late, let's just hold it together for another.
Yeah, we're back on.
We're all getting punchy now.
minutes. The bylaw numbers 31-2020, 36-2020 be first and third time and passed. And just to remind everybody that this is our new code of conduct as well as appointing our director of finance. But this is a new code of conduct and our new procedural bylaw as well that we are approving. Any questions or comments on any of the bylaws? Those in favor of approving the bylaws? Any opposed? None, carried. Let me go back to the agenda. Do we have any notice of motion? No notice of motion. Any new business notices and announcements? Councillor Lee.
Just today's the National Day for the Awareness of Alzheimer's. You all know I lost my grandmother to this disease, and it's literally like the worst thing, in my opinion, for anyone to go through. So just everyone keep that in mind. If you're watching the council meeting this late, throw Alzheimer's a few bucks, because it's something that's going to affect us all, and I think it's something we can work together to hopefully getting rid of. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Any other notices or announcements? Being none, confirming bylaw, I need a mover and seconder for confirming bylaw, please.
Councillor Lee to move.
Crawford.
Moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Crawford, that bylaw number 37-2020 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its regular meeting held on September 21st, 2020 be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That's carried. And finally, adjournment. I need a mover and a seconder.
Hour.
You guys have had enough. Moved by Councillor Grimes, second by Councillor Tyler Moore. Got to share a little bit. At the September 21st, 2020 meeting of the Council of the Town of Ajax be adjourned. Those in favor? Any opposed? None. That's carried.